listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Brian and Pat.
And hello, everyone. Happy draft day. It is currently ongoing as we're recording right now. They're at the Pittsburgh Penguins' 21st pick on the board right now. It's been... Okay, so every single year... Hi, Pat! How's it going?
It's been... Okay.
there was more to the thought, but then my brain stepped ahead of myself there. Every single year... all the experts are like, okay, this year's going to be crazy. We promise it's going to be crazy. And then leading into the day of, it's like, whoa, something crazy is going to happen. And then nothing crazy happens. This year has been insane. We have a massive trade a couple hours before everything gets going. You've got the Avalanche bringing in a new goalie, sending off 3 picks for that. And then let alone the trades happening during... some crazy picks that have also happened. I guess we'll start, even though it's draft day. First thing of the day, the Avalanche have a new goalie, Pat.
Yeah, so we have Frankie and Georgie is our tandem now. So it is, I believe it was Alexander Georgiev.
Correct.
Is now the goaltender. I don't want to say the goaltender. I want to say a goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche. More or less, that means Kemper is out. A lot of people assume that anyway. I even assumed it when they signed him for only 1 year at $5 million. It was a prove-it contract, and once again, he has proved it. I do really actually like this move, though. I look at Georgiev, and it reminds me an awful lot, like so much, of what Grubauer was.
Yep. So
Grubauer from Washington, he was the backup and was proving himself when Holtby was either out or dealing with the yips pretty much. So once he proved that he was actually, like, once he got quality starts, he was a good, solid goaltender. Colorado took interest right then. So this reminds me a lot of that. Georgiev didn't have a great season last year, but that's also because he was backing up Igor. Like, come on.
And the New York Rangers, as I've said many times on this show, were awful, and they were backstopped by a Dominic Hasek level performance of a goaltender. And like anybody else, even Vasilevsky probably would have put up bad numbers for the way that that team was playing. So it used to kind of be you had your 1A kind of like not necessarily 1B with Kemper and Frankie, because it was kind of like a 1-2. This is a definitive 1A, 1B, and it's you've got him for 1 year. So it's maybe that's just the way that Sakic's going to do things. It's just like bring in these guys for 1 year, and then they'll go make $5, $6, $7 million somewhere else, because the Avs, that's how they have to do their goaltending, because is it this coming season that Makar's contract kicks in? Or was he already making $9 million this year? I can't remember. But then they've also got to worry about McKinnon coming up. So that's why Kadri's not coming back unless he somehow signs for a lot less than Leon Draisaitl makes, which is not going to happen. So that was the first thing that happened today. And
and then in return, they got Colorado's 3rd and 5th this year, and then their 3rd next year.
Is it next year or is it 2024? It's one of them.
Well, it's a few.
It's essentially 2/3 and a 4th, or 2/3 and a 5th. Sorry, for Georgiev, which they didn't have to give up any players. And hey, I mean, the Avs clearly don't want to be in Montreal very long. They've only got the 6th and 7th round picks. Sakic picks up GM of the year on his birthday. So congrats to him. That one literally just happening like a few minutes ago as of the recording here. So that was the first thing that happened today. And then the rumor mills start. And everything is involving Chicago and a couple of other teams. You had
Chicago is doing what I think everyone thought Buffalo was going to do last year. And then Buffalo kind of did it, not a ton.
Well, they did, because they finally got rid of Eichel,
but that took a bit of work and everything. Yeah. But like, this is literally everything must go. Like everyone is on the table.
And like we kind of knew it was coming, but I don't think we expected this because they gave up 2 first-round picks for Seth Jones last year, and everybody's like, "Oh, they must not be rebuilding." And now they're like, "We're going full rebuild." So everything was happening around Chicago. There was rumors that Ottawa was going to be involved in it. There was rumors that New Jersey was going to be involved in it, and then out of nowhere, trade breaks that Alex DeBrincat is leaving Chicago, going to Ottawa for the first this year, so the 7th overall pick. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't remember exactly what it is. I'm not sure if you have it, Pat. But it was
Nah,
I think it was like you know what? I need to see it because
Well,
it
while you're
doesn't seem
looking
like
that
a
up,
lot, but it's
while you're looking that up, though, there was also almost another trade that happened with Ottawa just before this, and it was between Matt Murray and the Ottawa Senators and the Buffalo Sabres. So they were like working and chatting and trying to figure this out, and it was going to potentially cost them a first.
Yeah, so it was going to be Ottawa's what did they have, 13th or 14th pick
Yeah, they're
plus
lower, I
plus
think.
they were going to retain 25% plus another pick, and Matt
Yep.
Murray said no. Like this was a done deal on both
Well,
sides.
Matt Murray said, "Hey, did you forget about my no trade clause? Like these are my no trade teams. Remember what happened to Vegas?
Yeah.
Do you remember?" So clearly, Dorian was the issue in the Vegas kerfuffle with Dadonov, with him trying to get traded to Anaheim, and he said, "I won't go to Anaheim. It's on my no trade list."
Yeah, it
Clist.
definitely shows that there's something with Ottawa and that. But so that doesn't go through, and then like
And then
less than an hour later, we find out that Alex DeBrincat goes to Ottawa for the 7th overall pick, the 39th overall pick, and a 2024 third rounder, which is crazy.
that's cheap.
Everybody said crazy low, but the more that I was talking about this with a Blackhawks fan earlier today, I think I kind of changed his mind on it a little bit because DeBrincat has 1 year left. His salary this year is $9 million, so that's the bigger chunk of change. His qualifying offer is $9 million minimum. So if the Sens qualify him, they owe him at minimum $9 million. They can't
Mhm.
even attempt to ask him to sign until free agency because he has to hit, because technically at this point he is still on the 2021-2022 calendar year season. So it could end up being that they paid the 7th overall, the whatever other, and the third rounder for 1 year of DeBrincat. Like that, there is a very good possibility of that. Chicago cannot get rid of Kane. They cannot get rid of Taves. They both have full, unmovable, no-move clauses. Chicago wants to be last place in the league. Do you know why, Pat?
Oh, but see, I just read something that will poke a hole in what your theory is, though.
Okay.
And that is Kane and Taves, they don't want to rebuild.
I
They've been
know.
very vocal for a
So,
long time that they do not want to rebuild, which means now you've got this aging core that's mad. They are going to be furious
well,
at what's
this
happening.
is and this is all part of it. So, if you can't trade away the two that are locked in, the two older superstars, you get rid of the new up and coming guy. You get rid of the kid who scored 40 goals twice, who's one of Patrick Kane's best friends, and you've basically said the rebuild's coming. We want to finish last place. We want Connor Bedard. He is on the level of McDavid, Crosby, of he can turn a franchise around. So the Hawks are not going to be a good team this year. They ended up also getting the 13th overall pick, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because Montreal did some crazy trade in this draft. So Chicago
Terrible.
goes from having no first round picks because they gave up 2 first rounders to get Seth Jones to having the 7th and 13th overall pick throughout the day. By trade deadline, don't be surprised if at the very least Jonathan Taves is traded. Patrick Kane potentially as well. the Hawks would love to win like 2 games this coming season, get Connor Bedard, have all of these prospects, and just bounce back in like 3 or 4 years. And they're set up to do it. It just sucks that they bought Seth Jones, and like if they didn't do that, they could have turned this around so much faster and still had to brink at. But
So this is the. I don't think that Kane and Taves will leave, and I think that that will be the downfall
if
of this
if they don't, it won't
whole
matter.
poking. Well, no, see, and this is what I'm thinking is it will matter if they don't leave because they're going to be mad. They're going to be mad at this new regime that's come in being like, hey, you know what? We're going to tank and we're going to get this next level player, this new, here comes Connor McDavid. Trust me, he's going to blow you guys out of the water, all these things. And they're not going to like that. So they are going to be like, you know what? Let's will this. They're going to put every ounce of their being into the game to screw over the new management.
Then that's where the coach is on the side of the management, and suddenly they're getting fourth line minutes. It doesn't matter if like that. So at like Chicago, this seems to be the plan.
But then you lose all the money. You lose all your stockholders, like not stockholders, but you like season ticket buyers.
Pat, they lost them all anyway with the scandals going on. The only way that they're going to get the fans back, the only way they're going to get the fans back is if they get that hype around being the first or second overall pick next year. Everybody forgets when the 1 or 2 shows up.
They straight up could have just drafted Connor Geeky. He is the charisma. He is unique. He's fun. I almost did the RuPaul's Drag Race, this charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, but that's really what he is. He's so entertaining. They mic'd him up on Sportsnet when he got drafted because he's a personality, and that's what Chicago needed because he was so distracted with the mic on. He said it when he was talking to Dangle, but that's what Chicago needs. They need a personality, and that could save the team. I look at that, and that's a brilliant pick by Arizona.
Oh, Arizona.
They're set up.
We'll get to the draft in a minute. So there's some teams that when they do a rebuild, they kind of try and still be there a little bit. Some teams kind of go the New York route. Well, the New York route is also now what Montreal's doing because it's the exact same person behind it all. And based on the moves that they made, it really seems like Montreal's going, we didn't like finishing last, so we're going to go back in the playoffs this year as long as we can find a way to have defense. Oh, no, we traded away one of our only good defenders. So they're still going to figure that one out. But I think Chicago, no matter what, we're going to see them as a bottom 1 or 2 team this coming year. They want Bedard, and I can't remember the second overall, the expected second overall. It's supposed to be like the McEichel draft, in which both can be these unreal players. Obviously, Bedard is like he's a prospect that's touted in the same way that McDavid was, and the same way that Crosby was, and everybody was like, "Yeah, Shane Wright's going to go first." Obviously.
Oh wait. I lost Mike. I can't hear you.
Oh, Pat can't
hear me. You hit your mic.
Everybody else can
Stop hitting your mic.
So Pat can hear me again. Everybody else could hear me the entire time. I don't know what happened with that. So for those wondering, I've changed a few things behind the scenes so that Pat can hear audio that I play so that you guys can hear things like the intro off the start. Some little inside baseball there for you. So in doing that, sometimes if I touch my microphone, it makes it so Pat can't hear
I think we're also like going back to what we were talking about. We're kind of jumping away. You're trying to go to pull away from this Connor Bedard thing, and I want to stay on this.
Okay,
I sincerely do. I'm not saying you're wrong about Chicago. Yeah, it's clear that that's what they are doing. Obviously, the reason why I'm so against it is because I sincerely do not want Connor Bedard in Chicago. Chicago does not deserve it.
Nope.
I could say a lot of awful things with a lot of curse words right now because of how much it drives me crazy. I have a signed Jonathan Taves hat, and I'm embarrassed to have it.
Well, I'm telling you what they're going to do, not what I want to have happen. Trust me.
I know, but I don't want a world where that happens. That's why I want them to go out of spite and just
I
do
want
that.
them to finish last place in the league with 0 wins and end up with the 3rd overall pick who ends up being a bust.
Yeah.
So next year that the number 1 and number 2 are locked in. That is not going to change, and whoever ends up with 1 and 2, they're going to have some crazy talent, but we're talking way down the line. We're literally talking next year's draft when the draft is happening right now. And something that we took note of just before we started, episode 32 for us.
Woo!
And what does Pat
32.
say? Hey, there's 32 teams in the draft, so it's just kind of fitting today.
Yeah. No, that's in itself is pretty exciting. I was shocked to hit 10, so to hit 32, that is remarkable.
Do you want to talk about? Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's also obviously the DeBrincat trade was an interesting one.
Oh yeah, there was something else.
And I'm trying to remember what was it.
There was a goalie that signed.
Oh yeah, gross. Flower,
2 years, $3.5 million AAV, staying with the Wild, which I'm surprised at, considering the Wild are missing like $12.5 million from their roster.
But the other thing to keep in mind now is that is 2 lower cost goaltenders that are off the market. And I read that the Oilers are now currently looking to try and scoop up Kemper, which honestly I think that's a really good fit for them.
I think I said that trade away though.
Yeah, and they said they're going to look to open up some cap space to bring him in. But I think honestly that is a really smart move for them. He would probably love playing in Edmonton. He's from Saskatchewan, so it's really not too far to just kind of go home. But yeah.
So we're not talking about the draft yet, but just refreshing Twitter because right now insanity is happening. Frank Saravalli, so this official from Frank Saravalli, seems like the Leafs are going to trade Peter Mrazek to Chicago for their 25th and 38th overall pick. So there is a very good chance of that happening here in a minute, which is crazy.
Wait. Toronto has the 25th overall pick right now.
Yes. And I believe, do they also have the 38th? I'll have to check.
Wait, so they're dumping 2 picks and a goalie? That doesn't sound right.
So there must
be
something.
Not that bad.
There must be something going back the other way, obviously. But that's
if it's Patrick Kane.
Could you imagine? They wouldn't be able to afford that.
Maybe they retain salary. I don't know.
We'll see what happens from this. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. Zach Kassian has been traded to Arizona from Edmonton.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, so everything is kind of happening right now. So that one just coming from Elliot Friedman. So this is kind of fun seeing this happening in real time. It says Kassian to Arizona. I'm only assuming that that's Zach Kassian because it's
I don't know any other Kassian.
Yeah, so
there's some cap dump.
There's one way to do it. He was one of the names that a lot of the very smart hockey people were like has to get out of Edmonton if the Oilers want to stand a chance to win because they don't need that many players who can play punchy facey game.
He does nothing to better the team. He is a liability.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep refreshing Twitter here. So I apologize to anybody watching if I'm looking down a little bit.
I will kind of then carry through a little bit. Well,
what I will do for those of you who are watching, for those of you who are listening, I'm sorry, this is like word salad in your ears.
Yeah.
Let's let this simmer because it's kind of happening right now. We legitimately have not talked about the top 4 picks. So let's pull that up on the screen right now. So
that's where I was heading.
So what Pat can't see is what I have on the screen right now. Just the way that it's showing, we can see picks 1 through 13 because that just takes up the whole screen. So unbelievable. Looking at this list, like what's crazy to me is that the top 4, one person I saw out there picked it, and he was called an idiot. And that is Corey Pronman of The Athletic. He called this exact order, and everybody was like, no, that's not how it's going to go down. I'll let Pat at least go through the first pick, because obviously the Devils pick second.
Yeah, no, I don't actually think. Sorry, I started off way too hot on that. I don't think this was a smart choice by the Canadians, as much as I think that this is going to bring a really interesting flair to the team. It doesn't fit with their team, and the number one pick is Juraj Slavkovsky, I think is what I've been hearing. He's a left winger. He's Czech,
Yes.
and he's large.
Slovak, sorry.
Slovak. I'm so sorry.
Yes, that's
Yeah, so
very. That's important for something.
yes. So he is Slovak and he is enormous. He is a walking bus and he is ready to play hockey right now. So I think that's one of the big things that really kind of interested the Canadians is the fact that he was already playing against men. Not kids like most of the draft class usually plays against, but actual men. So I think that was sort of that tipping point of that he is NHL ready. They might do a bit of conditioning and it might be like halfway through the season, or maybe they put him in right away. Who knows? They were in last place. What do they have to lose? You know, I think it's a solid pick, but it does seem odd.
It seems.
If any, I would have gone with who New Jersey picked
Oh, I love
because
it.
of how much D they don't have.
Well, and the whole thing with taking Slavkovsky, I think we'll never get it right, as the first overall pick. Slavkovsky is the one thing that I saw is no team ever likes to draft a power forward of that size, but every team wants one. To me, this screams that Josh Anderson is going to be traded away. They need defense. They made 2 trades. What was it, between the 3rd and 4th overall pick? Yeah. As Logan Cooley is getting his jersey on, so spoiler alert, Logan Cooley goes 3rd overall. The Montreal Canadiens have 2 trades that come up. They trade away Romanov and a later pick to the Islanders for the Islanders' 13th overall pick. They trade that 13th overall pick and another pick to Chicago to get Kirby Dach. So all of a sudden, they now have their second-line center. They were one of the smallest teams up front in the NHL last year. They just added 2 6'4" players in their top 6 out of nowhere, both on very cheap contracts. Obviously, Slavkovsky, if he plays, he'll be making the ELC money. So that doesn't really hit in, pending the bonus structure. So if he is half as decent as what everything says, it's a wing that they need for one of the most fun small young lines in the NHL. I legitimately thought Shane Wright was going first so that they would have a scary 1-2 punch down. I'm kind of glad that this played out, that the Devils at number 2 take Simon Nemec. Didn't really know much about him. I was all aboard the Logan Cooley train, I will be honest. And then they draft him at number 2, which, by the way, Slovak went 1 and 2. I can't remember who the former. They'd only ever had one prior first overall pick for the country, and it was 22 years ago, I think. I
think it was 2001.
Absolutely
possibly.
Huge for this to happen. So the Devils pick up a defenseman, 6 foot, 199 pounds, that the metrics on him, they're like, yeah, it doesn't properly show anything because this kid is better than like what our metrics show that he can be. So if
the prospect charts, like he broke all of them.
If he's anything halfway decent, the Devils might finally have a decor. I'm not going to say this year because it seems like Luke Hughes is going to stay another year in Michigan, but that could mean the 23-24 season, it's Dougie Hamilton, Ryan Graves, Luke Hughes, Simon Nemec, and that could be a beautiful back end for the Devils. You'll have the Devils with a much older core up front. I say older, Jack Hughes will still be only like 22, 23.
Yeah.
So I don't think this year is going to be a playoff push year for the Devils. It obviously depends still on goaltending. I think 2023, 2024, when some of those older Metro teams are really on the decline, I think New Jersey's coming back. So I'm really excited for that. And I think the reason why we didn't take Shane Wright was Dawson Mercer stepped up. Devils have a player that is like Shane Wright, but established in the NHL. So we didn't need him.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're going to be trying to replicate something that you're in the middle of creating. It doesn't math out. It's just not worth it. Yeah, it's been really interesting so far. So, I mean, we'll just kind of go through. So, obviously Shane Wright is now on Seattle. He did the death stare. He stared down. He's shaking Bettman's hand, and then he just like does a death stare to the Canadians table.
As
And I would travel to Montreal for that first game because I feel like he'll put up 6 goals. Just the way he looked at that team, either he's gonna get demolished by Slav, or he's just gonna destroy them.
I said it to you before we started this. I hope he is the best forward that comes out of this draft and the second best player. Full update on the Mrazek trade. So it is Peter Mrazek and the 25th overall pick going to Chicago. Coming back is Chicago's 38th pick. So the Leafs managed to get rid of Peter Mrazek for going 13 spots later in the draft. I think that's a win for the Leafs.
That's a big cap dump and a big relief for a lot of Leafs fans.
I think that puts the Leafs as number 1 on Kemper now. Without
question. I mean, that was and I think that if I'm Kemper and I'm looking at the two teams, that's a tough coin claw.
That's also the second first round pick in the last few years the Leafs have had to trade away to get rid of a player, by the way.
True. That's a bad habit to get into. However, the other pickups that he's been doing after the fact have been wonderful.
Yeah, so
let's be honest. You look at Giordano, you look at Blackwood, you look at even Campbell. That was in from a trade. You've got Muzzin came in from a trade. So the scouting is okay. I mean, you've got people like
nobody expects
Patan, you've Liljegren, and you've got Sandin. Like you've got solid young guns, but his trades have been fantastic. So you can't really fault him for dumping cap on a gamble.
And injuries like that, like you can't.
Yeah.
That was just unfortunate. For the Leafs, that means that they gain $3.8 million in cap space because 0 salary retained. So that's good for them there. And apparently, there's still more trades to come. So this is an absolutely crazy year. Like even looking at the list, it seems like the trades are taking priority over the kid that was touted to go number 1, drops to number 4. We were talking about. I actually talked to my neighbor about this when I was talking to him while my dog was outside earlier. Is that he's kind of in agreement that a few years from now, Seattle might have the best center depth on 1 and 2 in the league.
Oh yeah,
you
got Beignets, and then you've got Matty Beignet, and then you've got Shane Wright now. Like you have to flip a coin on who's 1C, 2C. Like what?
And
that's insane.
If Grubauer finds a way to come back,
or Decord,
So Seattle out of nowhere, like no matter who of you look at the top 4, no matter who they got, it was going like that is perfect for them. Vegas, I don't know if they're going to be able to bounce back or not, or if they were like a firework, fun, gone.
Yeah.
It's Seattle seems like their team came in and went, you know what? Fans, be patient. Give us 2 or 3 years, and we're going to give you one of the most dynamic teams on ice. It's kind of looking like that.
Yeah, and I have no issues doing this right now. I know that they're like, I mean, I'm not like a draft prospects person. I don't follow this heavily. But the two that really stuck out to me that went to the same team and I think was absolutely brilliant and does not shock me at all is the number 6
Oh, I
and
guessed wrong.
the number 12 pick, and that is with Columbus Blue Jackets picking David Jurasek and Denton Matejchuk. And those two are very good defensemen. The two, they said, our laser sights on these two. They are going to be so good for them. Matejchuk is quick with his hands. He's kind of like a Bowen Byram a little bit. Not as big, but even still just like really good with his hands. He's able to get in if he needs to. He can make really smart and sharp plays. He doesn't have the finish like Makar or Byram does. But you've got Jurasek, who is big. He has speed and he has a monster slap shot from the point. He, like, in a few years, once he hits the fact and turns into a man,
And one of those
because
trades was
these are
from
children.
and one of those trades was from sending Seth Jones to Chicago. So like
Yeah,
there's a chance that that trade ends up super biting Chicago in the butt. So
even more.
yeah.
They've already been bitten multiple times. But yes, I think this has been one of actually the most interesting draft years that we've seen in a long time. A lot of movement, a lot of really unique players. All of the players are like in the top 10, even the top 15 have been like good, solid players. Names you're going to hear for quite a few years down the road, most likely. It's been a lot of fun so far. So I'm glad, because years
And
past, especially with the pandemic ones, they've been a bit poopy.
and something that's not surprising, Detroit completely went off the board with their pick from what kind of the numbers were. But if you were looking at what experts were saying like a few days ago, they said, yeah, Detroit's probably going to go with Marco Casper. That's who
Mhm.
Yzerman picks. The last time he went off the board like this, um, kind of ended up drafting the Rookie of the Year for last year. So Yzerman has an eye for that. He had the eye for that in Tampa as well, so that's not surprising. I would
Most
like,
of their depth is like off the board picks or low level picks that he was just like, no one's going to pick this person. And I can promise you they're going to be amazing. Matthew Joseph, Braden Point, Shirelli, all those.
I would like to
Sorelli's not
say, as
Shirelli.
much as Arizona picked up a great kid in Connor Geeky with that attitude and everything, Winnipeg gets the kid with the best name ever, Rutger McGroarty. The
I
first,
don't
he
know.
is the first ever player drafted from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, but
Rutger.
no, because St. Louis at pick number 23 picked
Yeah.
up Jimmy Snuggerud. That's great. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about watching that, or like going through the draft list, is just seeing some of the last names and just like getting a good smile out of the pure creativity of some of these last
That
names.
sounds
It's
like
wonderful.
that sounds like you're playing MLB and you didn't draft Noah Syndergaard. You drafted Jimmy Snuggerud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
So
yeah, so you're
it's
good.
it's
Go
been
for it.
crazy. Chicago just drafted Sam Rinzel, a defenseman, with the pick that they got from the Leafs, or Peter Mrazek. So odds are, because of the history of the Leafs trading away those picks, that kid will end up being like Scott Niedermayer. Um,
Hmm.
okay, here we go. Um, looks like more coming in on Zach Cassian.
Okay.
Zach Cassian to Arizona with pick 29. So the Oilers no longer have their 29th overall pick,
Oh.
for a future second and a future third for the 32nd overall pick. Wait, no, that is
What?
so confusing. I'm reading the Friedman treat. So it looks like Cassian plus 29
Hmm.
plus a future second and a future third, and Edmonton gets back the 32nd overall pick that Arizona got from Colorado. This stuff's confusing
So
and happening.
so Arizona got a player and two picks.
3 picks.
Well, no, because they're moving up.
No, so yes, Arizona's going from
So that's a
32,
1-for-1.
32 to
Yeah,
29, and then yeah, a future second and a future third. Plus, that is crazy. This is this
this
is
is a
the
dump and
crazy.
run
This
season.
is the crazy draft. The Habs are back on the clock. Last time they were on the clock, anything crazy's happening. So here we go. The Leafs just shed what we say 3.9 million. The Oilers just
Yep.
shed 3.2 million dollars because no salary retained theirs. So I think we have a goalie fight for Darcy Kemper starting. Obviously, the Oilers lost out last year on Philip Grubauer. So who knows? By the time you hear this, we may know where Kemper ends up.
Yep.
Because a team could decide to give the Avs a seventh rounder to acquire him, to then try and sign him. Like that, there's a very good possibility of that happening now if you've
Because
got.
they still own the rights of him, so they can trade him if they want, which is interesting because yeah, he is a UFA. So he would be going to market next week, but Colorado can still trade him if they want to. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so the Avs could end up getting another seventh round pick. Like, why not, right? You're not going to re sign him. And then that way it gives a team a little bit of an advantage to try and get
Yeah.
him. So that's kind of the ongoings of tonight. It's been crazy, to say the
The one
least.
thing I want to do though,
Okay.
so I'm gonna pull away from the draft for now. We've really talked over each other quite a bit, trying to go through what's going on in the draft. So let's go back. We're gonna go back a little bit. We're gonna go back to April. And in April, I asked you some questions
Ooh.
about what was going to happen in the playoffs. Now,
Oh.
obviously, we didn't do this at the end of the Stanley Cup one, and that is simply because I forgot. But I'm gonna bring it up now because I'm not just gonna like ask those questions and let it fall into the void. So the playoff questions. The first question that I asked was, who will be the player that makes you go, I didn't expect them to play so well? I said Trevor Moore, and obviously that did not pan out. Brian said Tyson Berry,
I guessed the
and
wrong former
obviously
Leafs defenseman. I should have said Cody Ceci because he looked damn good for the Oilers in that playoff run.
I will say that if I were to cast my vote now of who is the person that surprised me the most on the ice, um, it's weird because I shouldn't have been surprised, but Valerie Nichushkin.
Oh, Nuke.
He he played out of his mind good. So I think that he definitely deserves the oh wow, good for you kind of award. Brian, who would you recast your I didn't expect him to play so well to?
Uh, that I don't know. Nuke is such a good one. But I think just because I had said on one of the episodes that Lehkonen would get the Stanley Cup winning goal, I got to stick with Lehkonen.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Kind of the same thing. Both like nearly identical play styles, so it's really kind of funny that we both are in that mindset of yeah, he didn't throw up a ton of goals, but boy did they play well. So
That's sometimes what you need.
um so the next question was, and I have to look up whether or not this is correct. So I will skip that. I'll go to the next one after that.
Okay.
And then while I'm looking it up, I'll ask this. So will a goalie win the Conn Smythe? Brian, you said no, but if it was going to be Vasi.
Yep.
I said no, and I said if it was going to be either Smith or Quick. I wasn't far off with Smith. He played pretty well for the first little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I said Marner, Igor. So clearly, I did not think that.
Clearly, you should have had more faith in your Norris winning Conn Smythe Stanley Cup champion Kale. All hail
I didn't,
Kale McCarr.
but I didn't think that he was going to be able to do it. I don't know why. It just was like my gut was, I don't know, against me, I guess.
Well, and what
Um,
was fun? You look back the first three rounds, he ate teams alive. Tampa
Mhm.
kind of kept him contained a little bit. And the second that they did, off went your first and second line and your other defensemen. So,
Yeah, you're not wrong.
why do you think Landeskog said the only way to win is to find yourself a Cale Makar?
True. So the next question, and the one that I had to look up the stats on, will Mitch Marner score 5 goals in the playoffs? Brian, you said yes.
I think I'm wrong.
Pat, me, I said yes.
I think he scored
Mitch
3.
Marner ended up with 8 points.
Was it 3-5?
And 2 of those were goals.
See,
I'm
guessing.
no.
My hands are down because I'm making sure there's no more trades. So that's
Nope, fair enough. So we were both very, very wrong on that. But it's also
can't believe the Leafs didn't get out of that first round.
Once you hit Game 6,
it was over.
Or sorry, once you lose Game 6, then
yep. All right, what else we
anyway,
got, Pat?
Will we see? And we already know the answer for this one. Will we see a triple overtime or more in these playoffs? Brian said no. Pat said yes. And
it was literally like the second night of the playoffs,
the
first game
second.
between Pittsburgh and New York. Their main goalie gets injured, and then you've got the AHL goalie coming in getting the win.
Yep. So that was satisfying.
I can't remember other things in my daily life. Go figure.
And then finally, which team would you not want to play against in the playoffs out of the 16? Now that you've seen it, keep that in mind too. But you said the Wild. I said the Leafs. Do you still stand by that? Regardless of whether or not you're going to win, all kinds of outside factors, injuries, bragging rights, the fans.
I would change it to the team that they lost to in the first round.
Tampa?
Yeah. No. The Wild lost to St. Louis.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
St. Louis, I think if they would have been on the other side and ran into Colorado in the third round, I think they would have stood a better chance because of the goalie injuries.
Yeah.
Oh, that's speaking somebody else that we haven't even talked about that complete aside. Toronto and Edmonton could also end up fighting over Ville Husso.
True, yeah. Ville Husso is on their team also.
So, yeah.
But
obviously the correct answer is the Colorado Avalanche, but that's the boring answer because they won the cup. St. Louis, to me, they're set to be scary for a couple of years. Unfortunately for them, they'll have to try and get through Colorado, which is not that good luck.
Yeah, that'll be a tough challenge. So long as Sakic can keep the similar vibe alive amongst the team. For me, definitely not the Wild. They didn't look great. Because I was all on West Coast. Sorry, I have a sneeze. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I can feel it coming.
Thank God I didn't sneeze.
So, because West Coast, that's obviously where my mindset was at, being a Colorado fan. I am going to pull from the East Coast, and if I was going to say what team would I not want to play against after seeing all the teams, New York. I was dreading the New York Rangers getting into the finals. Not because I don't think they could have beaten Colorado. In fact, I think that if they went up against Colorado, that would have been a sweep.
Oh, the Avs would have swept them in a heartbeat.
Except for one caveat, and that is Trouba.
Yeah, Trouba
doing legal hits and injuring people. There was a lot of really suspicious looking play and everything's like that. And yeah, honestly, if I had to choose out of all 16, it's St. Louis. And it's not because I think that they could beat the Colorado Avalanche. I sincerely do not care who's in net. Ville Husso is the better goaltender than Binnington. Get off your damn horse. Come on. Binnington's not a goal.
Out, though.
Yeah, but Binnington is plain and simple. Binnington is not your starting goaltender, and he proved that this year in the season. He's not the better goaltender out of the two. So saying no Binnington in net is the reason you didn't win the cup is the dumbest take I've ever heard in my entire friggin' life. It's just sadness. And I get it. You're bitter, you're sad, you're angry that your team didn't get through. And I understand that. The amount of times I've been mad seeing Colorado hemorrhage their leads and lose it in 6 when they should have won it in 4, things like that. The amount of times I've seen that, and it sucks and it hurts. But attacking Kadri the way that they did by still posting about, well, if Binnington was healthy, come on, shut up. You guys barely made it into the playoffs with Binnington in net. If Ville Husso wasn't there, there's no way you would have made it. You would have been knocked out by Vegas. So Binnington in net is going to carry you? No, absolutely not. You need to have a better team out front before you can start making claims about that, because Kemper and Husso are a pretty equal pair in my mind. They play very similar games. They put up very similar numbers. They are comparable. And Kemper with one eye was putting up just barely over 900, and Colorado won because they were able to defend and push and just do whatever they could on the front half to win. Binnington is not the reason that St. Louis lost. St. Louis lost because they're not good enough.
St. Louis was never going to win that series out of 7
They
games.
were never going to win the cup.
No, and they wouldn't have made it. Honestly, the Oilers would have eaten them alive.
Absolutely. They can't keep up with the Oilers.
Tampa Bay would have swept them in 1 game. Like, the Blues...
Tampa Bay would have made them look silly.
The Blues had the perfect matchup in the first round for their style of play, and it showed.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that's just how it ended up. We can argue that all day, Pat. Doesn't matter, because guess what? The Avalanche won the cup.
Yeah, ifs and buts, candy or nuts, Binnington's name doesn't matter anymore. Get over it. You lost. The season's done. It doesn't change anything. Ugh.
Well, I think as Pat's getting upset about Jordan Binnington, pretty good place to wrap things up. Doesn't seem like anything else is going to happen right now, just except for kind of picks coming through normal, because obviously we had Zach Kassian getting traded during all of this. We had Peter Mrazek getting shipped off. We are 27 picks in, and nobody's taken a goalie, which I feel like is incredibly rare. Maybe is there no good goalie prospects this time around?
There wasn't a lot that were popping up in the top 30s that I've been seeing. So,
I mean, we've got Philip happening here. We had a Philip drafted and then a Philip drafted. But
it's spelled the same way too.
Yeah, I think one's from Slovakia, one's from Sweden. That is a lot of 3 Slovakian players drafted in the first round. That is awesome for that country. I think that's a good place to wrap things up for this episode, Pat, because I don't really feel like tap dancing for 5 more picks to come through. Because
oh my God,
who cares about 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32?
Well, and not to mention, this draft started at 7:15. Yeah. It is 10:35.
It's only supposed to be 3 minutes on the clock. It ends up being like 7 minutes per pick.
Well, because it says the pick is in, and then the whole team gets up, and then they walk up the stage, and then 2 to 3 minutes later, they walk up, and they're like, "Hi, so it's good to see everyone. Thanks for coming out, and we want to congratulations.
Thanks for hosting. Congrats to the we're gonna hand things off to somebody who doesn't know who the pick is, so they're gonna read it from a card.
And then they get the card, and then they're just like, Bunjur.
Your boy Callie.
Jamapple is my name. Like that's really what it's all about. It's Bunjur Jamapples is what keeps happening with this butchered French. So yeah, it's a very long draft. That's the downside to having it in person versus digital.
And there's 6 more rounds tomorrow. Yeah. We said it. We'll wrap things up there. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad that trades were happening during this, especially to get your reaction to the Zach Kassian being traded.
And Mrazek, that's a crazy one.
So to me, that definitely screams that between the Leafs and the Oilers, one's getting Husso, one's getting Kemper. We'll see who where, either or. I think both those teams just made great trades for their future, and both look scarier for next year. So,
Yeah, no, good for them. It's smart moves, very, very smart moves, and it's the perfect time to do it. So absolutely go for it. And then you can just bug the GMs that you want to steal a goalie from. They're right there.
Yep.
Just run up and just kick one of the chair legs off, and they're good. Give me your goalie.
So wanna thank everybody for listening to episode 32. Anything you want to add, Pat, on the way out?
There is no episode 32 thoughts on this one. You see what I did there? Hopefully we don't get hit with any copyright issues. No, just enjoy all that summer fun. Yeah, usually I have some like kind of inspiring-y sort of thing, but I don't know. I'm going on vacation in like a week and a half, and I'm already mentally checked out. So I don't know. But we'll talk more hockey next week because it's free agency, and that's super duper fun. And I'm really looking forward to it because it's going to be bonkers.
We thought this was fun. Just wait.
Well, it's going to be the most boring one in the world. It's going to be just like complete opium, and we're just going to be sitting on them being like, oh my God, just do something. And no one's going to sign. They're all just going to sign with their own teams again. So, yeah, that's my predictions.
Goes back to the Avs. Florida somehow keeps Giroux and Sherratt. Yeah, that's going to happen.
Or just Ottawa somehow gets like 11 centers. That's my prediction. They are going to get rid of all of their wingers, and they will be just a team of centers, and they'll be like, figure it out.
Giroux
and that will
and
be
Kadri to Ottawa.
But I will say, the one thing that I find interesting about Ottawa is with that new arena being built, most likely they're going to probably go forward with it. They are currently doing the smart thing by bringing in Alex DeBrincat because now they have a face to hang a banner on the outside of LeBreton LeBreton Flats. I was trying to do this elegant outro and I can't even talk. But yeah, they're going to actually have a star player outside of Brady Tkachuk that they can hang on the outside and be proud of. And you know what? That's a smart move. I like it. I think that's really good for it. And if they can keep them, that's a great deal.
So good job on that trade. And on that, we will say goodbye until next week.
Bye. I got nothing.
No, you got nothing.
You see all this bald spots? What's this? Yeah. Look at that. It's just white hair.
Why do you have all those bald spots? Yeah, see, I went all look at the hair flowing here, Pat.
Right? No, this is white hair. It's not bald. I was doing that on the thing. I was like, what's going on?